Yo, 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 what is up, y'all? It is your least favorite football YouTuber, JD Dabeast, and today we are going to be doing an NFL mock draft. Yes, I am back after 2 weeks of not uploading a single video. My apologies, I was trying to enjoy my spring break, but I'm back. And today we are going to be doing an NFL mock draft. It is exactly what it sounds like, with the NFL draft coming out in a few weeks. I thought it would be a good idea to do this. Full disclosure, I'm not going to be doing any NFL mock trades. I'm not going to be doing any trades for this draft because trades are a little bit too unpredictable, and I'm not going to bother predicting that, and I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get right into it. With the first overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Carolina Panthers taking Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. Now, there are multiple reasons why I like Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. For one, even though CJ Stroud may be the better pocket passer, in my opinion, Bryce Young is a better overall athlete. He's more mobile, he's more agile, he's quicker on his feet, and I know a lot of people want to bag on him with his short size, but to me, in my opinion, I'd rather have a short quarterback because he's more mobile and he's more agile. Because in reality, more shorter quarterbacks tend to deal better in the NFL than taller quarterbacks. To be honest, let's say Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, which I would actually take. I would actually compare Bryce Young to, in my opinion. Bryce Young can do it all. He's agile. He can throw the ball deep if you need him to. Not as deep as Stroud though, but he still has a pretty strong arm, and those are all the qualities that I think that will have him drafted number one overall. It kind of reminds me of the Cam Newton Blaine Gabbert debate, where a mobile quarterback where it was a mobile quarterback versus a stereotypical pocket passer, and that's the exact same debate that I think is going on right now. Now, I'm not calling CJ Stroud a Blaine Gabbert, but I am saying that the debate is a little bit similar. But regardless, I have the Panthers taking Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. Now, with the second overall pick, I have the Houston Texans taking CJ Stroud, quarterback out of Ohio State. Now, CJ Stroud, in my opinion, even though Bryce Young is the better overall quarterback, I think he is the better pocket passer. And in my opinion, he kind of reminds me of a little bit of Tom Brady and a little teeny tiny bit of Patrick Mahomes, in that they both have cannons. Like, Patrick Mahomes has a cannon form arm, and so does CJ Stroud. Tom Brady has a high level of football IQ, at least he had before he retired, and so does CJ Stroud. Now, in my opinion, one of the things that I kind of see knocking him down is his mobility. I prefer my quarterbacks to be a little bit more agile and a little bit more mobile. And there's a lot of instances where his offensive line collapses and he hasn't been able to get out of the pocket in time. But in my opinion, he shouldn't be a problem as long as the Texans know how to develop him. Bryce CJ Stroud should develop into a future superstar. Now, with the third pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Arizona Cardinals selecting Will Anderson Jr., defensive end out of Alabama. Now, the Arizona Cardinals really need help on a defense. J.J. Watt retired. They don't have Chandler Jones anymore. Buda Baker, he's pretty good, but I mean, it's only going to be a matter of time until he gets up there with age. And they really need some really good help on a defense. And that's where Will Anderson Jr. can fill in. In my opinion, he's a lot like Micah Parsons and Von Miller, in my opinion, in the fact that he has the strength and he has the agility to get to the quarterback pretty quickly. And he also has the strength to stop any run, stop any play. You ask him to tackle anybody, he will tackle him. And honestly, in my opinion, he's probably the best overall prospect in this entire draft, which is why I have them picking Will Anderson Jr. this high. And as long as the Cardinals can build a team around Will Anderson Jr., I think he will be a future All-Pro and a future Pro Bowler in the making. Now, with the fourth overall pick, I have the Indianapolis Colts taking Will Levis, quarterback out of Kentucky. Now, the Colts have needed a quarterback for a while now, ever since Andrew Luck retired back in 2019. They've honestly had a really crazy quarterback carousel. First, it started with Jacoby Brissett, then Phillip Rivers, then Carson Wentz, then Matt Ryan. And honestly, I feel like that has to stop today. They have to draft a brand new quarterback. They have to develop a quarterback from the ground up. And that is where Will Levis comes in. Now, I do kind of see him struggling a little bit with his awareness and his ability to read defenses, because I feel like that would cost him in the NFL. Like, he's had some pretty bad throws, and he is a bit of a boomer bust project. But in my opinion, if you can put some good defenses, some good pieces around him, supply him with a good defense, supply him with a good wide receiver core, a good running back, a good offensive line, I feel like Will Levis can succeed in this Indianapolis system. With the fifth overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Seattle Seahawks selecting Tyree Wilson, defensive end out of Texas Tech. Now, Tyree Wilson, in my opinion, I think he would fit Seattle's defensive scheme like really well. Like, I feel like the Seahawks are a very pass heavy are very a pass heavy defensive scheme, because obviously they're in the NFC West and they have to defend against Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, DeAndre Hopkins, and all them fools. And in my opinion, Tyree Wilson is honestly one of the better pass rushers in this draft class. Like, he can really rush the quarterback very well. He's really good at putting pressure. He can tackle the quarterback really well. He can stop the run from behind. He has the speed and the power to get to the edge and make a play. I do feel kind of concerned with his overall strength though, because I feel like if a stronger offensive tackle like got a hold of him, I feel like he would fail and he would have trouble getting off the block. But as long as the NFL coaches are going to be coaching him, teach that out of him and teach him how to avoid situations like that, he should be fine. Now, with the sixth overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Detroit Lions selecting Christian Gonzalez, cornerback out of Oregon. Now, I have them picking corner this early because they just lost Jeff Okudah, and the Lions really, really need help in the secondary. And the Lions are trending upward, in my opinion. Like, they are borderline playoff contenders, in my opinion. And all they really need is a little bit of help in the secondary, a little bit of help on the defense, and they should be good. And Christian Gonzalez could really help with that. Ironically, he actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Jeff Okudah because of his physical and his speedy play style. But he also reminds me a lot of Jalen Ramsey in the fact that he's not afraid to get physical. He's also has that little bit of swiftiness to his play. He's always there. Locking down receivers. He knows exactly where the ball's going to go. And the Detroit Lions could certainly use a cornerback like him. With the seventh pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Las Vegas Raiders selecting Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. Now, Anthony Richardson, I will admit, there are a few flaws that are a bit concerning, and he is, I feel like, the biggest boom or bust project in this entire draft. But his upside is just too big to pass up on, in my opinion. Like, he reminds me a lot of Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, if I had to compare him. And honestly, I feel like the Raiders could use a quarterback like that. Like, they have the pieces in place to run a scheme like that. They have Josh Jacobs. They have Devontae Adams. They have Hunter Renfrow. Darren Waller's not there anymore, but I'm sure they can find a good tight end in the draft or maybe in free agency. I mean, all they really got to do is boost up that offensive line, in my opinion. And you add Anthony Richardson into that high-powered rushing attack, and I feel like the Las Vegas Raiders are just going to be deadly. Now, with the eighth overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Atlanta Falcons selecting Paris Johnson Jr., tackle out of Ohio State. Now, ideally, with this pick, they would want to take a quarterback here, but unfortunately, all the good quarterbacks at least are taken. They're off the board at this point. And unless you want to go with Hendon Hooker, I don't really think there's a lot of good options left. True, you might be saying, why don't you go for a receiver? They're pretty locked at receiver. They have Drake London and they have Kyle Pitts in there, not to mention they have Cordell Patterson. And whoever the quarterback of the future is going to be for the Falcons, I really do think that they need to start now to like get insurance to protect him. And Paris Johnson Jr., he reminds me a lot of Trent Williams, is that once he gets a hold of you, it's really, really hard for you to loosen his grip. And I feel like that ferociousness and that toughness, in my opinion, is going to fare him very well at the NFL level. With the ninth pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Chicago Bears selecting Peter Skoronski, tackle out of Northwestern. Now, Justin Fields, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions, has already proven himself to be a suitable quarterback. Like, in my opinion, he is a total stud. And the Bears recognized this and they decided to build around him. They decided to bring in DJ Moore. They decided to bring in Chase Claypool, Economia St. Brown, Darnell Mooney. I think he's about to be traded, but I mean, if he stays, that could be a pretty quality weapon for him as well. And honestly, now that they have the receiving core, all I really see them needing is, well, help on the defense, help with the running back position, and most importantly, help with the offensive line. I think they really need to protect Justin Fields, and Peter Skoronski is, I think, the right man to do the job, because Peter Skoronski, he reminds me a lot of Andrew Whitworth. He's a very good pass blocker. He's a very good run blocker. He doesn't have like the raw strength that Paris Johnson Jr. does, but in my opinion, he makes up for that in his footwork and in his versatility and his relentlessness to just not let you through at all. And I really think that those traits will suit him very nicely at the NFL level. Now, with the 10th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the defending NFC champions and the Super Bowl runner-ups, Philadelphia Eagles, picking Bijan Robinson, running back out of Texas. Now, Bijan Robinson, I honestly have not seen a running back be this hyped and be this good coming out of the draft since Saquon Barkley. And honestly, he reminds me a lot of Saquon Barkley, in my opinion. He has the versatility, he has the strength, he has the speed, he has the power, he has everything you want in an NFL running back. He also kind of reminds me of Derrick Henry with his relentless motor to just not stop until the whistle blows. And that situation and those traits will allow him to succeed in the NFL very much so. And I have him going to the Eagles because the Eagles did lose Miles Sanders. And Bijan Robinson kind of looks like Saquon Barkley. And Saquon Barkley is on the Giants, a division rival. So why not add to an already loaded roster and pack more punch into a division that honestly they could be theirs for the taking already. But adding Bijan Robinson, adding their own version of Saquon Barkley, and the rest of the NFC just will not stand a chance, in my opinion. Moving on to the 11th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Tennessee Titans selecting Jalen Carter, defensive tackle out of Georgia. Now, Jalen Carter, in my opinion, is the best defensive tackle prospect in this entire draft. He kind of reminds me a lot of Fletcher Cox, in my opinion, in that he really likes to bulldoze his way to a tackle. He can, and speaking about his tackling, that is one thing he excels at. He loves tackling the quarterback. He loves tackling the running back. And those traits, I think that will suit him at the NFL level. I know he's probably going to fall a little bit down in the draft than where he was originally projected because of legal issues with the reckless driving. By the way, rest in peace to those who died and condolences to their families. I'm so sorry for your loss. But I feel like Jalen Carter, one way or another, he's going to go in the first round of the draft. And when he does, I really hope that this team can develop him, because if they can, they are going to get something special out of him. And I'm just speaking the truth right there. Now, with the 12th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the second pick of the Houston Texans in the first round, I have the Houston Texans selecting Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver out of Ohio State. And with that, college teammates reunite. And to be honest, my way of thinking with this pick was that the Texans already did a lot to already did a lot of moves to like support their incoming quarterback. They signed Devin Singletary. They made some improvements on the offensive line. They worked a little bit on the defense, although not nearly enough. But there's something. It's something. And one of the biggest needs that I think they have right now is receiver. Because now that they have their quarterback already, now they need to focus on getting a receiver. Because they just traded away Brandon Cooks to the Cowboys, and they don't really have any other receivers under the Kenny Stills. I don't know if he's still on a team on there or not, but if he is, that's the only receiver that they got. So, in my opinion, why not reunite CJ Stroud with his old college teammate Jackson Smith-Njigba and start get a connection like what they have in the Bengals with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, what they have with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith, with the Dolphins and Tua and Jalen Waddle, and obviously bring that over to the Texans, and I think that would do a lot of wonders for this very, very sad Houston franchise. Now moving on to the 13th overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the New York Jets selecting Brian Bresee, defensive tackle out of Clemson. Now, in my opinion, the New York Jets are building something very special in New York. They're going similarly to like what Detroit is doing in the fact that they're building a really good team. And I really think that one of the things that they could help them is building their defense. Now, they already have some pretty good pieces. They have Sauce Gardner, one of the best corners in the league, an up-and-coming defensive tackle in Quinnen Williams. You have a rookie with Jermaine Johnson III, who they drafted last year, who didn't have the best rookie season, but I'm pretty confident that he can develop into a star as well. And why not supply more to that defense by bringing in Brian Bresee, one of the best defensive tackles in the draft. In my opinion, he is the best defensive tackle in this draft behind Jalen Carter. And this guy is just monstrous, man. Like, he can do it all. Like, honestly, he doesn't have a lot of power or like upright strength, but he does make up for it with his speed and agility and his ability to make open field tackles and to just get to the quarterback. And honestly, this is one special player coming out of the draft, in my opinion. And if the Jets can get this guy, it's going to be a bargain, in my opinion. Now, moving on to the 14th overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the New England Patriots selecting Jordan Addison, wide receiver out of USC. Now, in my opinion, the Patriots haven't really had a number one receiver in a very long time. I think since like Randy Moss back in 2007. And I feel like they really need to go receiver here in this draft. They need to supply Mac Jones with an actual number one receiving threat, in my opinion. And I think Jordan Addison can do that. Jordan Addison, to me, looks like he has the swiftiness and the speediness that Juju Smith-Schuster has, who not only is ironically a USC receiver himself, but is also, more ironically, on the New England Patriots as well. And I feel like that receiver combo is going to complement each other so well, with Mac Jones having both options to throw the ball to. It's just going to be stupid for the New England defense, for the New England offense. And I know for a fact a lot of people are saying, oh, they should trade Mac Jones. Oh, they should go with Bailey Zappi. I mean, he almost won Offensive Rookie of the Year. One bad year, mind you, he was injured during some of that year, is not enough cause for you to just trade Mac Jones like that. Like, don't do him dirty like that. Like, it's not warranted. I feel like you should see what you have in Mac Jones. Like, I feel like Mac Jones, you do have something special in that guy. Like, try to maximize his value and try to just build around him rather than just trying to make him an afterthought. I don't know why you guys are doing that. Now, moving on to the 15th pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Green Bay Packers selecting wide receiver Quentin Johnson out of TCU. Yes, I know, hella late, because, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is basically gone at this point. But, I mean, better late than never. I mean, right, Green Bay Packers fans? Anyway, in my opinion, Quentin Johnson kind of reminds me a lot of Devontae Adams in that he has that physical frame, he has the hands. I do see him struggling with catching the football, but I mean, I feel like if the Green Bay Packers coaching staff could just coach that out of him, I feel like he could be a legitimate wide receiver threat. And pretty soon, he might actually be the one of the best receivers in the NFC North. I know for a fact he's never going to be the best receiver in the NFC North due to Justin Jefferson, not to mention Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he could actually be pretty close. In fact, he might actually be better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. He may not be better than Jefferson, but he may be pretty close. And that's as good as it can probably get with this. It could probably get at this state with the Green Bay Packers because it's not really looking good for this team. Now, for the Washington Commanders, who have the 16th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Commies selecting Joey Porter Jr., cornerback out of Penn State. Now, first off, thank God Dan Snyder finally sold the team because he was just a sad, incompetent sack of shit that honestly didn't deserve to own a professional sports team at all. Thank God he sold them. And thank God that Joey Porter doesn't have to go into this organization with that owner. And he can just finally flourish. He can just finally go into the NFL system in Washington and finally have a chance to, develop. But anyway, in my opinion, Joey Porter Jr. reminds me a lot of Jalen Ramsey because he has that swiftiness and he has that speed. He plays with that, and he also has a little bit of the physical play that Tre'Davious White has. And there are a few concerns about him not being able to adapt to certain areas of coverage. But if NFL coaches can just coach him into that, I feel like this man could be. I feel like he could actually be one of the next Sauce Gardners, in my opinion. I'm not kidding. I definitely believe that Joey Porter Jr. could be the next Sauce Gardner of this entire draft. Now, moving on to the 17th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Broderick Jones, offensive tackle out of Georgia. Now, in my opinion, they really have needed help on the offensive line since a lot of their key pieces retired in 2021. You have Alejandro Villanueva go to the Ravens. You had Marquise Pouncey leave, retire. And he basically had a bunch of other pieces, leave the offensive line for the Steelers. And ever since then, I feel like the Steelers' offensive line has been in shambles. It hasn't been good. And I feel like if you guys are going to build around Kenny Pickett, you guys are going to have to start with the offensive line. You guys already have the receivers. You guys have Deontay Johnson. You guys have George Pickens. You guys have a stud running back in Najee Harris. You guys have Pat Freiermuth at the tight end position. Now you guys just have to build the offensive line. And I feel like Broderick Jones is the guy who you can build around. In my opinion, Broderick Jones reminds me a lot of Tyrone Smith in that once he pushes you and he has that attitude where it's you do not you're not gonna get past him. Honestly, he plays with that ferociousness, he plays with that toughness that I see in Tyrone Smith, and I really think that those traits are really gonna help him very well in the NFL level. Now, moving on to the second pick the Lions have in the first round, I have the Lions selecting Myles Murphy, linebacker out of Clemson. Now, the Lions are building a team that's very special up there in the Motor City, and they are really, really this close to playoff contention. And in my opinion, they already set on offense. They have Jared Goff. They need a running back, but I mean, they could probably get one in the later rounds. They're pretty stacked at receiver with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. They have TJ Hawkinson now. They have a pretty good offensive line with Frank Ragnow and Penei Sewell. They're pretty much set on offense. And now all they really need to do is build the defense. They already addressed a secondary with picking Christian Gonzalez in this mock draft, but why not add more to the front seven by adding in Myles Murphy? And him being complemented with guys like Malcolm Rodriguez and Aiden Hutchinson is just going to be a downright bloody defense, in my opinion. Like, this defense is going to be very, very stacked with the addition of Myles Murphy. Now, moving on to the 19th overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting O'Cyrus Torrence, guard out of Florida. Now, Baker Mayfield is already, like, he's already a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, obviously, and one of the biggest struggles that the offensive line that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have is the offensive line. They lost a lot of good pieces. They lost Shaq Mason to the Texans. They lost Alex Kappa to the Bengals a few years. I think it was like last year. They lost a bunch of key pieces like Ryan Jensen to injury. I don't know if he's going to come back this year. But regardless, Tristan Wirfs is probably the only reliable piece on that offensive line, and that really needs to change if they want to go back to playoff contention, and that starts with O'Cyrus Torrence, the best guard in this entire draft. Now, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here because Baker Mayfield, if they draft O'Cyrus Torrence, then Baker Mayfield really has no excuses. If Baker Mayfield cannot succeed with Tristan Wirfs, O'Cyrus Torrence, he has Kyle Rudolph, a former Pro Bowler, at his tight end. He has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at the wide receiver position. If he cannot succeed, granted, he also has a pretty loaded defense, in my opinion. And if Baker Mayfield cannot succeed in that system, then I don't know what to tell him, in my opinion. But regardless, O'Cyrus Torrence, guard out of Florida for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, with the 20th overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft and the second pick that the Seahawks have in the first round, the Seattle Seahawks select, I predict, Devin Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois. Now, to be fair, the Seahawks defense is just really needs improvement. Like I said, they play in a pass-happy division, so why not complement a breakout star, Tariq Woolen, with another stud cornerback in Devin Witherspoon? In my opinion, I know, sorry for saying in my opinion for like the 1000th time, but in my opinion, Devin Witherspoon has the swiftiness and speed of, I'm going to say, Patrick Surtain II. Patrick Surtain II. I was going to say Jalen Ramsey, but that was going to sound too repetitive. So I'm going to go ahead and say Patrick Surtain II. They have that speed and swiftiness. They have that lockdown corner attitude. And they also have that little bit of physicality, which I like in the corner, but mainly I prefer to have them like swifty and speedy. And that's what Devin Witherspoon is. He can lock down any opposing receiver. You just ask him to do it. And in my opinion, he is one of the best cornerbacks in this entire draft class. And if the Seahawks draft him, then this is going to be one of the best cornerback duos in the entire league, no doubt. Moving on to the 21st pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Los Angeles Chargers selecting Kalijah Kancey, defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. Now, honestly, a lot of people have been saying that he's like the next Aaron Donald, or that like his pro comparison is Aaron Donald because he's a small lead tackle from Pitt. And to be fair, I think they are spot on. Like, I kind of see the versatility, the agility, and also the combination of that with raw power and strength in Kalijah Kancey that I see in Aaron Donald. Because granted, I am a Rams fan, so I have the privilege of seeing Aaron Donald every single Sunday, whether or not the team is good. But regardless, Kalijah Kancey is one of the best defensive tackle prospects in this entire draft class. He's the third best for a reason behind Brian Bresee and, of course, Jalen Carter. But Kalijah Kancey is going to bring so much to a defense. And if the Chargers are able to get him, you're talking about a defense now that has J.C. Jackson, though he kind of flopped. But I do have faith that he can bounce back somewhat. But anyway, and either way, if you can, you still got Derwin James. You still have, let's say, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. You guys have all of that. Add in some interior defensive line help. and Kalijah Kancey, and you guys are just going to see a Chargers defense that is just downright disgusting, to be honest. Now, with the 22nd pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I predict that the Baltimore Ravens will select Zay Flowers, wide receiver out of Boston College. Now, my reasoning behind this pick is that they're going to want to go pick a receiver with this pick to please Lamar Jackson. Yes, they picked Rashad Bateman back in 2021. He doesn't look like he's going to pan out. I don't know. We're still going to have to see on that. They did sign Odell Beckham Jr., and which is a really good signing. But why not go further and sign a legitimate number one receiver? I'm not saying that Odell Beckham Jr. isn't. But why not? But why settle for just one number one receiver when you can have two and just draft Zay Flowers? Zay Flowers, in my opinion, he reminds me a lot of Tyreek Hill with his speediness. And he also reminds me a bit of Stephon Diggs with his route running and his hands. And add in that lethal combination of both those traits, and I feel like Zay Flowers is going to be a very, very dangerous weapon in the AFC North. Now, for the 23rd pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Minnesota Vikings selecting Deonte Banks, cornerback out of Maryland. Now, the reason why I decided to have the Vikings draft Deonte Banks is because, well, simple. They need help in the secondary because Lewis Cine doesn't look like he's going to cut it. Harrison Smith is getting up there in age. They just lost Patrick Peterson, although he was kind of old. Though they're really going to need help in the secondary if they want to compete in the AFC North, especially now that the Lions look like they're trying to compete for a playoff spot. If they don't fix their secondary, they might be one of the biggest laughing stocks in the entire AFC and entire NFC if they don't fix it up. And that's where I decide to put in Deonte Banks, cornerback out of Maryland, because Deonte Banks, he has very solid coverage skills. He has very solid instincts. He has very solid football IQ. Overall, he is a pretty good athlete, and put him into this Minnesota defense, and I think he would work wonders here in Minneapolis. Now, with the 24th pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting Lucas Van Ness, defensive end out of Iowa. Now, the Jaguars are pretty set on offense. They have Trevor Lawrence at the quarterback position. Running back, they have Travis Etienne. They have Brandon Scherf on the offensive guard position, although they do kind of have to improve on the offensive line, in my opinion. But I feel like they could do that in the later rounds, plus free agency. They have Evan Ingram at the tight end position. They have Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, and I think Zay Jones is still on the team. I don't know if he still is, but regardless, you still have those two, Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, at the wide receiver position. Overall, they have a pretty good offense. And all I think they have to do right now is just improve on the defense, which is what I think Lucas Van Ness can do to the Jacksonville organization. They already have Josh Allen, the defensive end, not the quarterback, obviously. They already have Josh Allen. They already have Trayvon Walker, the number one overall pick they drafted last year. And they both look pretty good. They both look like they have some promise, especially Josh Allen. Trayvon Walker is getting there. But add in Lucas Van Ness to that already stout defensive line, and you have like a really, really fierce defensive line. Like, why not build the Saxonville 2.0 down there? Why not? It all starts with the drafting of Lucas Van Ness. Now, for the New York Giants, with the 25th overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have them selecting Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. Now, the Giants did make the playoffs this year, which was honestly like a really, really big miracle in my opinion, because, well, the Giants haven't really made the playoff, haven't been really known as like a playoff contender these past years, but they made the playoffs this year, which hats off to them. But I feel like their main strength right now is their offense, because even though they don't really have some, even though they really don't have any good receivers, they still have Saquon Barkley and they have Daniel Jones, and that's pretty much it. But I feel like one of their biggest weaknesses, however, is in the secondary because they really don't have anybody to like cover really good since James Bradbury left for the Eagles. And one of the things that I think could fix this New York Giants secondary is Brian Branch. Brian Branch, he reminds me a lot of, I'm going to say, Tyrann Mathieu with his physicality, but he also reminds me a lot of Eric Berry because of his size, his play style, and just his swiftiness overall. Because Brian Branch is just a phenomenal athlete, and as long as they can put him in the right system, which I feel like the New York Giants could be a pretty good system for him, Brian Branch's ceiling is just going to skyrocket. Now, with the 26th pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Dallas Cowboys selecting Dalton Kincaid, tight end out of Utah. Now, the Cowboys have already made some pretty significant moves throughout the entire offseason to improve their offense. They have one of the best offensive lines in the entire league with pieces like Tyrone Smith. They have Tyler Smith, their first-round pick from last year. They have Zach Martin. They have some pretty good pieces all around. And they also traded for Brandon Cooks to be the number 2 receiver to complement CeeDee Lamb. They released Ezekiel Elliott, making Tony Pollard the new number one running back. And overall, they're pretty set on offense, except for the tight end position, because they did lose Dalton Schultz in free agency, and that is going to be a pretty big blow for them coming in 2023. So why not replace him with another tight end named Dalton Kincaid? Dalton Kincaid, in my opinion, he has, ironically, a lot of similarities to Dalton Schultz, but he also has some similarities that I would like to say in George Kittle. Because George Kittle also does like a little bit of that physical play style that Dalton Kincaid plays with. And also Dalton Schultz also plays that swiftiness. That Dalton Kincaid also plays for. And put him in the Cowboys, and I feel like it would be a pretty good fit. Now, with the 27th overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Buffalo Bills selecting Nolan Smith, defensive end out of Georgia. Now, the reason why I'm going defense with this pick is because they're already pretty stacked. They're already pretty stacked on offense. They have Josh Allen at the quarterback position. They could improve on the running back position now that they've lost Devin Singletary, but I feel like they can get that in the later rounds, maybe in free agency. They have a pretty good offensive line. They have a pretty good tight end in Dawson Knox. They have a pretty good wide receiver core with Stephon Diggs, who is a monster, and a complementary piece in Gabriel Davis. And why not add more to the defense? They already have Von Miller. They have Kyrie Elam, Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano, all good pieces. But why not add more to that by adding another piece that could be potentially a dangerous weapon off the edge in Nolan Smith? And trust me, put him in the right system, and Nolan Smith can just flourish into one of the best defensive ends in the entire league. I am not kidding about that. With the 28th pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Cincinnati Bengals selecting Anton Harrison, tackle out of Oklahoma. Now, the Bengals are a relatively good team who came out of nowhere back in 2021. Like in 2020, they were one of the worst teams in the entire league. And then they went and got Jamar Chase to complement his college teammate Joe Burrow. And all of a sudden, they just became legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And that 180 would just spark it created a spark in Cincinnati. And honestly, the Bengals are to this point, like now they're one of the best teams in the entire AFC, which is very nice to see. However, ever since like the Super Bowl where they lost to my Rams, their most glaring flaw was by far the offensive line. The offensive line, like, it was a horrible flaw back in 2020 when Joe Burrow had that season-ending injury. It was a flaw back in 2021 where they lost the Super Bowl to the Rams. And it was a flaw once again, despite every single thing that they did to improve it. They brought in Lyle Collins, they brought in Alex Kappa, they brought in all these pieces, yet the offensive line was still an issue. And the good thing they're addressing it this year, they brought in Orlando Brown Jr., which is a really, really solid piece. But why not add more to that offensive line by bringing Anton Harrison, tackle out of Oklahoma? He's one of the best tackle prospects in the entire draft. No questions asked. In my opinion, he actually might be the best tackle prospect coming out of the Big 12 conference. Like, straight up. Like, honestly, you put him in that system, that Cincinnati Bengals offense, and I'm pretty sure he can be a future All-Pro in the future. With the 29th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the New Orleans Saints selecting Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. Now, the New Orleans offense is pretty good, if I can say so myself. They have Alvin Kamara, even though he's probably dealing with some legal issues. He might get suspended. Hopefully he doesn't. I'm not sure if he is. But anyway, they have Alvin Kamara, and in case he does get suspended, they also signed Jamal Williams from Detroit. They have Derek Carr as their new quarterback. They have quarterback is probably a little bit shaky, but Derek Carr seems like a pretty safe option. They have Michael Thomas and Chris Olave at the wide receiver positions. They have a pretty good offensive line led by Ryan Ramczyk. And one of the pieces that I think they're really lacking in is tight end. And I think Michael Mayer could fill that void. Yes, a lot of people are going to be saying, what about Taysom Hill? I see him more as a gadget tight end. I see him more as like a rotational tight end. I don't see him as like a full-time starter. He might come in at quarterback a little bit. He might be like a backup quarterback and a gadget tight end. That's how I see Taysom Hill, but I don't see him as a full-time starter. So why not go ahead and get a full-time starter with Michael Mayer at tight end. Michael Mayer has versatility. He has hands. He has some pretty good route running speed. He has everything you want in a tight end. And you put him in that New Orleans offense, and I feel like they're a lock to win the NFC South. Now, with the 30th overall pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the defending NFC champions Philadelphia Eagles selecting Cam Smith, cornerback out of South Carolina. Now, Darius Slay and James Bradbury are honestly, in my opinion, the best cornerback duo in the entire NFC. The best one of the AFC is obviously Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey down in Miami. But in terms of the NFC, it's got to be Darius Slay and James Bradbury. However, they're both getting up there in age. Like, I think Darius Slay is already like on the wrong side of 30, and like that's when typically cornerbacks start regressing. And so why not find a replacement and try to think for the future by taking Cam Smith, cornerback out of South Carolina, to replace Darius Slay when he retires or he goes to another team when the team can't afford him. Now, Cam Smith has speed. He has tremendous ball skills. He has tremendous versatility. He has it all. And I feel like if Philadelphia can just develop him and have him learn the defense, I feel like he can soar. He can fly, pun intended, to new heights in Philadelphia. Now, for the 31st overall pick and the final pick of the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the defending Super Bowl champions Kansas City Chiefs selecting Josh Downs, wide receiver out of North Carolina. Now, despite being the defending Super Bowl champions, I feel like they have some glaring issues at the wide receiver position. They lost Mecole Hardman. They lost Tyreek Hill last year. They lost a bunch of pieces. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster. And not to discredit Sky Moore, but I feel like the Chiefs really need a little bit more than Sky Moore at this point in time if they want to keep winning Super Bowls. And so why not go for a legitimate number one option with Josh Downs? He reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs in the fact that he has hands, that he has versatility, but he also reminds me of A.J. Brown a little teeny tiny bit with his physicality play, and that he always likes diving down for the balls. And that is something that I really like about Josh Downs, that he, no matter what, he always finds a way to catch the ball, no matter what. And that is a receipt, and that is a quality that I think that could suit him well if he's drafted to the Chiefs. Like, imagine him with Patrick Mahomes. Like, honestly, that would be a pretty scary duo. He's not going to be exactly like Patty Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, but it'll be close enough. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is me. That is my 2023 NFL mock draft. What is your mock draft? Who would you pick number one overall if you were the Carolina Panthers? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Please consider pushing it out of the algorithm. And with that out of the way, this is JD the Beast signing out, and I'll see y'all to the draft. Peace out.